It's now time for this month's broadcast of Learning Now TV.
Welcome to our June program. It's lovely to have you, Kate. And I did see the wonderful Kate in person. First time for a long, long time this week. What a surprise. She's real, she's tangible, and she's as tall as me. So, Kate, it was really good to talk to you and meet you face to face. We must do it much more often than once in a blue moon.
We should.
Who have we got on the show today?
But for this month, I got to talk to friend of the show, Dr. Jane Bozarth, about why networks, culture, and human judgment are the real engine of organizational learning. Even though she's meant to be retired, she can't help herself. She's still researching. She's still working. She's got this great new model. And it's always a joy to speak to Jane because her love of learning and pushing the profession on never goes away, never wanes.
Well, carrying on the research theme, I met with Martin and we looked at Microsoft's recent research report on AI, exploring why leadership alignment is absolutely fundamental as the driver of AI impact. So the focus is on AI impact. And it's a really well-researched, lots of data, because it's Microsoft, lots of data report. So I really recommend that. And it's downloadable and readable for free.
Great. I love that. And then Andy Lancaster is back with his Learning Lens series. This month, talking about learning modalities with Tom McDowell and challenging one of L&D's most persistent assumptions that how you deliver learning is what makes it effective. I think that's super interesting. We're having a lot of conversation about modalities as the AI effect kicks in. So that feels very timely to me.
Good, yeah. Well, I very few young people wake up in the morning desperate to get to their job. But I talked to Aidan Lancaster, and he works for McDonald's. Yes, not just young people, that's true too. He works for McDonald's, and he's running the apprenticeship program. Now, Aidan left school without qualifications. He suffers from dyslexia. Went into McDonald's and they have nurtured him. He's now got a degree. He went on their degree program. He was an apprentice in McDonald's. And now he's helping other apprentices get to where he got to and how he got there. I think it's an absolutely heartwarming story about growth through learning in an environment that pushes you but nurtures you at the same time. And he talked a lot about mentoring, which is a key part of their apprenticeship program. So I think that's a lovely case study, Kate.
And we had Tom Kagodi on last month, I think it was, talking about, from the shop floor to the top floor, right? And I think that those stories and those organizations, McDonald's got such a proud history of doing that. And I absolutely love to see it, especially at a time when early careers feels under a bit of threat.
Yes, absolutely true. And Rob Clark is back with the monthly roundup of, always here, Rob presents his monthly roundup of learning sector news. And Rob is always worth listening to for all the things that you might have missed. Rob's got them. He captures them and he shares them with us. So really good. Enjoy the show. Really enjoy this show. It's a great show.
Enjoy it. Regular viewers of Learning Now Television will recognise our next guest. Dr. Jane Bozarth should need no introduction to anyone who's been in and around learning and development. So established practitioner, author, speaker, researcher, the list goes on, ukulele player extraordinaire as well to add to her list of talents. But thrilled to have Jane on the show as she dabbles in her part-time retirement, but can't stop researching, can't stop thinking, can't stop working. But Jane, you wanted to talk a little bit about where things are going sort of with the L&D profession, some of the impact of AI, and some of the new work that you've been doing.
Well, yeah, and it's a lot of this comes from reading and being on LinkedIn a lot. I keep running into all of these magazine articles, all these pieces, all this research, all these comments about companies that are laying employees off to replace them with AI and then having to hire them back in 6 months. I think it's something like 65% of companies that are doing this are hiring people back, almost right away. The question, it was begging the question, what is it that humans are doing that they're missing? Because we talk in big, broad terms of humans have judgment and humans have discretion. I'm trying to get a handle on what it is that humans are bringing that the organizations seem to not understand. We're focusing on all this AI doing the things we already do a lot faster than we can do them. And it turns out a lot of the things that we're automating and the things that AI can do is not really where the humans are adding the value. Now, I will say, if you're in a very controlled, policy-driven, rule-bound, ruled with an iron hand kind of organization, like a factory, an assembly line, probably some of that works. But if you're in a situation where you've got people who need to make judgment calls, where they've got to use discretionary thought, where there are ethical dilemmas, where there's not a clear right, wrong, yes, no answer, where you've just, you've got to make those calls. I think that is where they are making some missteps. So I started cogitating on this. I talked to a whole lot of people. I asked all my friends. I'm like, well, what's going on? What are humans doing that's bringing the unique difference that organizations don't seem to see? And the truth is, a lot of it, I think, is kind of invisible. So I came up with a little framework. Tracy Parrish did the diagram for me.
Here's one she made earlier.
Yeah,
we'll flash this up on the screen as well.
And we're hoping this mirror, that we're seeing it correctly now. We're hoping it doesn't flip for the recording. But what I was seeing is that the organizations at their base, what humans are doing are the things that humans have always done. They talk to each other, they work together, they share some stuff. They don't share everything. They publish some things, they show their work, they have meetings, they have networks, they have communities. And it's the stuff I've been writing about for 20 years. I've got books on communities. I mean, I did a dissertation on communities of practice. I did a book on showing your work, working out loud,
showing your work,
sharing tacit knowledge. I did a book on social media. So, I've been involved in this realm for a long time. And what I see when I'm looking at the humans, I see that they are here. They're interacting and engaging with each other in networks and communities of practice and working out loud. And it's within a culture that I don't think management's entirely responsible for culture. I think employees and workers make their own contributions to it. I do think that the culture is what allows them to do these other things. So here's the thing. I see lots of opportunity here at this layer for learning and development to do things more than just building courses. I think that we have gotten very married to the idea that that's what we're here to do. The problem is, thank you, AI. The problem is with AI available now, if we're not careful, up here is where we have the more formal things. We got your LMS, we've got LRSs, we've got scheduled training, we've got formal training, we have all the data, we have the more formalized stuff. And if we're not careful, everything is just going to collapse up here into content being spit out. We just talked a few minutes ago about the slop. And I think we need to pay more attention to what we can be doing here to support our communities, to support our networks, to help people learn how to work out loud, how to share the stuff, and how to use AI to do that better. After all that, assuming that they've learned well, then we start seeing the meaning making, which goes back to what I was saying about the discretionary thinking and the judgment calls, and knowing, okay, this happened on Tuesday. Now, what are we going to happen that the train's going off the rails? It's funny. Before we started recording, we were talking about I think you used the phrase that AI creates content, but you still need to do the mopping up. One of my favorite stories about this, I made the mistake one day of not being in the office when one of our safety people found a video on YouTube about using a fire extinguisher on a fire, which seemed very boilerplate, nothing wrong with it. He sent it out to 85,000 state employees, and nobody checked the closed captions, which AI had generated. One of the closed captions, one of the screens said, "You should throw water on a grease fire." And nobody taught. This is why we got to have a human. This is what a human is doing. So pay attention. So we're talking about how, and I know I'm going really fast. We don't have a lot of time for this, but we're looking. We need to look at how we can help manage this social infrastructure, that we can help expand it, that we can keep it from just turning into content creation and content consumption. Our job is not just to deliver learning. I think we need to take another look at that. An old favorite little training ditty of mine, the question was, does the librarian believe her job is to help the people find the books or to protect the books from the people? Right? What is your job? How do you define your job? Is your job just to spit out courses with buttons and pretty graphics? Probably not. You might need to start having conversations about that. Ultimately, then we have we're looking for a more adaptive enterprise, that everything's not just driven by this week's change initiative. As you have said, that changes every week now. You no longer have a year-long roadmap, right?
Oh.
And I argue that AI in this instance is an amplifier, not a driver. That this, if we're not careful, we're going to let this tail wag this dog. We need to figure out how to let this make the information flow better, how to make the information make more sense, how to help the information find the patterns, find the duplication, find the replication, find where there are problems creeping up over and over again across divisions, find where there's a solution somewhere that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
AI can do all those things, but it can't do it if the humans aren't generating the stuff in the first place. Is that making sense?
1000%. I mean, and there's this phrase orchestration is thrown around a lot from a technical sort of IT perspective, but I think you can apply that to the L&D side of things as well. And thinking about, I like to think about it like a conductor in an orchestra. So yes, you're going to have these agents that can do X, Y, or Z, right? That can do dynamic assignments, right? Fine, let the system do that. Like, that's really boring,
Right.
but what are they assigning, and what are the parameters, and what are the jobs that those are related to, and what are ultimately the business goals that you're trying to get to, right? Or what do the individuals need to achieve that you can help them get to? What do those teams need to achieve that you can help them get to? So I think, but I mean, I said this to you earlier before we started recording, but we had a conversation internally here talking about unlearning as much as learning. And I think there are some ideals that we've all held very tightly, that you're very sort of articulately challenging, that we need to start to let go of. But I think it's not the don't do this, it's the what else. And I think that there's a lot of value in your model, because you're starting to think about the again, to what we said earlier, right? So that the AI is doing the washing up and like the boring stuff, and then you get to do the creative stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean creating a course. There's other
Right.
aspects of the job that are creative around that.
Well, it may be a course that looks a little different than it has before. It may be figuring out ways to extend a course so that people can stay connected to each other, so that different people in different divisions can find each other, people in distributed workforces. It has always frustrated me a little that in many situations, the learning and development people have access to literally everybody in the organization, and they don't leverage that very well. That's a huge affordance. I also would like to know that all the people that talk about leadership with a capital L and what they do and don't, we are the ones that train them.
Yeah.
We do the leadership training, right?
Well, we actually have a couple of very large enterprise customers, and the talent learning and talent platform is that is their one global platform. So everything else is sort of by region or by department. And so actually that is their sort of source of truth, or their one platform to be able to reach everybody on. So, and I think we think about learning can think about itself in this pecking order, but actually what if we flip that? I love that.
Yeah. Well, and I also, again, I will say, I think management's important. The leadership is important. I also think maybe we need to talk a little bit less about learning and development with capital letters, talk about what I can do. What can I do to help shift this culture, to help show people that you can share their work and it's not life threatening, that you can show people how to help networks connect. It doesn't usurp your authority. I think that the individuals, we don't talk maybe enough about that, about
Yeah.
the individual and what their power is. The other thing I ran into, I'm not sure this is going to fit here, but the other thing I've run into about the type of organization, the type of person that they are mistakenly trying to replace with AI is somebody who, when you need a situation where someone has genuine empathy, where someone has genuine coaching skills, where someone has genuine relationship building, AI is good at mimicking those things, right? And anytime you've ever played with Claude or Chat GPT, it is extremely positive. That's a great idea, Kate. You should think about that, Kate. That's really well framed. You know, it's very
Woo-hoo. Yeah.
reaffirming. And there was a fellow years ago, I can't think of his name right now, who wrote about how we did a great job of teaching people to pretend to listen. And there's, you know, there is something to be said for teaching AI to pretend to be empathetic, right? You teach it these cues, you teach it a script, you teach it words. You probably remember this from training years ago. What I hear you saying is, let me reframe that for you. You know, it's not really a human on the other end of that. And I think eventually I saw the phrase, I love this. I saw the phrase customer revolt in regards to chatbots that were trying to do things. And it's still, no matter how well trained the bot is, it's still coming across as inauthentic. And people do pick up on that. We need to be careful, I think, back to your point of assuming it can give all the feedback, assuming it can give all the personalized coaching. Maybe it can. Maybe we still need some humans in place for that. So I don't hate AI. Sometimes I talk about this and people, oh, Jane, I don't hate AI at all. I use it all the time. I love to Muppetize myself, but other than that, I don't think we need to let it drive the train. I think we need to see how it can amplify and support.
Love that.
But be careful to be thinking it can replace, because in many cases.
So you're going to be writing a little bit more about this, and speaking a little bit more about this as well. People can hit you up on LinkedIn. We'll put your details in if they want to discuss.
Yep.
Jane, thank you for coming on and sharing your latest thinking. We always love to hear what's going on in that brain of yours. And do hit Jane up if you'd like to continue the conversation.
Sure.
And we'll share as soon as she's kind of published and got some of her writing out there again. We'll make sure that you guys in the audience have sight of that. So Jane, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
And hi to Nigel and Colin.
I first met Aidan Lancaster at the Learning Technologies Conference. He was one of the aspiring young, really talented L&D people who became one of the 30 under 30. So this is my chance to talk to him a little bit more depth about his world and his role. He is currently the coordinator of L&D at McDonald's, but he came in a very roundabout way into that role. So tell us a little bit about your story, Aidan. How did you get to where to be where you are now?
Sure. Hi, Nigel. It's really great to be here as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, let me give you a bit of a background to myself. So when I was leaving college, I was really unsure about what I wanted to study. Mix that with being really dyslexic. Going down the traditional route of university probably wouldn't have been the best idea for me. So I looked into alternative methods around where I could get a higher qualification whilst actually being really suited to my learning style and my learning preference. And that's where I discovered what an apprenticeship was. So I applied for a McDonald's school leaver degree apprenticeship program and was successful. And what I did was I spent 5 years working from an entry-level role where I was working within the restaurant, serving customers, making food in the kitchen. And then I worked my way up to an assistant manager, all whilst completing a degree over a 4-year period. The apprenticeship really allowed me to learn on the job, so I could put directly the theory that I was learning into my role, and that really helped to embed my learning. And what's really, really positive for me, and what's great about apprenticeships in general, is that you're able to earn and learn at the same time. So I came out of my degree with absolutely zero debt, and I was able to purchase my first home at the age of 25. So I now work in the education, learning and development team, as you've said, and I specialize in apprenticeships, which is really surreal because it's a full circle moment. I'm able to give back directly to the department that shaped me, and the department that actually gave me a chance to win when really the odds were probably stacked against me.
Yeah, also, you're very sympathetic and empathetic. You know what it's like. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm struggling here," you know exactly what they're talking about. So you
Very
can be
much so.
practically helpful as well as do what you have to do in terms of administration. So that's a kind of win-win. It's win-win for you because it means you're growing, you're watching and shaping a big scheme that you wouldn't necessarily have had a chance to do earlier. So tell us, how does it work, the apprenticeship system? It's still flourishing, I hope. I sincerely hope that you're not the end of the road, you're the beginning of the road in McDonald's.
Nigel, if it wasn't flourishing, I'd be doing something wrong. So let me tell you about how it works. So McDonald's in the UK and Ireland, we've been offering apprenticeships for a long time, since 2006, and since then
Wow.
we've actually supported over 23,500 people, and that's still growing, and we're looking to grow that even more. Right now, we offer over 20 different programs for our people, and that covers every single role within the restaurants. And we also offer a variety of apprenticeships for office employees as well. We work with a number of different providers, including some universities who deliver our award-winning apprenticeship program,
Yeah.
and they really understand our business. Their long-term relationships we've had with them, so they really understand how our business works as well. Now, the key to the success of our apprenticeship program is very much our mentoring scheme, which runs alongside of it. Now, there's three key pillars of support that an apprentice has whilst they're completing an apprenticeship. So, the first one is every apprentice receives a McDonald's mentor from the first day of their studies. And that is the
Yeah.
person who supports them throughout their learning journey and ensures that they're really developing in role and how they should be. The second support network is directly from the training provider. So they make sure that they're progressing nicely with their apprenticeship. And then the final support network is actually us as the central team. So that's where I come
Yeah.
into play here. We support them in any way they need, and we provide training and support so that the mentors understand, first of all, what
Yeah.
their role is, and actually how they contribute to the success of every apprentice that they support.
Yeah.
And what we know from that, what we know from our mentoring scheme, and what we know from our apprentices that go on to program, is that our completion rates are fantastic. They're ultimately that they're higher than the hospitality industry average, which is great. And we also know that if an employee completes an apprenticeship, they're more likely to stay with the company and progress their career with McDonald's. Now, it's great that people choose to stay with McDonald's. Me being a little bit of a case study there,
You
but
are
actually,
definitely a case study. Yes.
there you go. But if they decide to go elsewhere, we're really confident that our apprenticeship program has really played like a key part and a pivotal
Yes.
part in their career.
Yes, absolutely. But I met someone from McDonald's in the US, and they talked about best first job. You're an example of someone who's more than best first job,
That's it.
but
No,
the very
it's
least
the
is
best
the
job. It's the best job for me,
best
Nigel.
job, just the best job. Yeah, but it's that grounding, that fundamental grounding, and it's obviously paid off massively for you. You got your degree from Manchester Metropolitan University, didn't you?
That's
And
correct.
that
Yes,
and
I
that was a good
graduated a couple of
experience.
years ago. So
2
yeah,
years ago, right?
yeah,
Okay, good experience all around.
amazing.
Great. Really good to hear. Have you got a couple of stories? Just tell us a little bit how the apprenticeship system works in McDonald's. It's very
Yeah,
hard to say that. I hope you say it better than I do. Apprenticeship system.
sure. So before I give you some like specific ones, like Nigel, I have so many great examples
I
where
bet you
we've
have. Yeah.
impacted people's lives.
Yeah.
What I will say is our apprenticeship programs, like I mentioned, they're award winning, and apprenticeships are really for people of all ages. And what's really important to understand is when people think about apprenticeships, it's really typically associated with younger people leaving school, and that
Yeah.
was the case for me. But actually, we employ a really diverse mix of people in our restaurants, and that is reflected into those who complete an apprenticeship with us. So um we know it's a huge achievement for people who complete an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of our apprentices have been recognized nationally on externally as well. So one of our apprentices last year won Apprentice of the Year at the
It's great.
Multicultural Apprenticeship Awards, which is a fantastic achievement. And actually,
Yeah.
one of our mentors, so not an apprentice, but one of our mentors was recognized externally as well for the incredible support that she's provided to so many of her apprentices as well. So it's really great that we're able to recognize apprentices internally, but actually we're also getting recognized externally for our mentoring program and our apprentices as well.
It's terrific. And there's hope for me, Aidan. That's what
Yeah.
that's telling me.
Nigel, you're welcome to complete an apprenticeship with us whenever you would like.
That is extremely kind, and I'll probably take you up on that offer. So, can you share for us what your career aspiration is? Where do you want to go from this point? You've grown and come a long way, but where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up? Not terminally in your career. I mean, where do you want to end up in the next few years?
Yeah, really great question. So, for me, I very much know that my role, whatever I'm doing in life, I have to have a really positive impact on people, and I have a really strong passion for learning and development. And my current role leans into apprenticeships, which is the department that shaped me. So if I'm able to link the two together and work on learning development, impact people, then that's really what I'm looking for. And I'm really committed to McDonald's, which is nice. I've got such a great foundation from when I was working in the restaurants to where I am now, and that's really great. And also, Nigel, it's probably worth mentioning I absolutely love a chicken nugget. So I'm really committed to McDonald's.
Well, I hope you have to pay for them. You don't get chicken nuggets free.
There you
So
go.
just tell me, you're seeing people like you come in from the very day one, not knowing what they want, maybe very nervous about what they're embarking on, and you see them grow and you see them mature, and eventually you see them graduate. That must be very rewarding for you.
I think so. So two things from that. First of all, I was once in their position. I
Yes.
was once in a position where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So being able to see people almost take that leap of faith and put the trust in us to support them, that's really fulfilling. And I know once at one point in time I was in that position, but then when you see them grow on program and you see them develop skills which they can take in all aspects of life, then that's really impactful for me. And seeing
Yes.
them graduate at the end of the program, seeing them complete, yeah, very fulfilling.
It gives you purpose, doesn't it? You wake up in the morning and you've got purpose in your life. And so many people your age struggle for that in their roles. So it's just really heartening for me to hear you describe what you do with great passion, with great enthusiasm, and much more importantly, really, with great results. So thank you so much for talking to me, Aidan. It's been a real pleasure to reconnect with you. And I wish you luck. And I hope you can come back again and again as you move through your career trajectory. And I see you at this level, I see you at another level. So great to talk to you. Good luck with everything that you're doing at the moment. Hope you continue to do great work. And I hope you continue to have purpose in your role. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Appreciate it.
It's time now for Rob Clark. He's presenting his monthly roundup of learning sector news.
A new talent acquisition report says hiring is now more selective as AI reshapes workforce planning. The Learning Technologies Awards 2026 has opened for entries with 4 new AI and accessibility categories. New research shows workers' biggest career regrets, and more are switching entire occupations when changing jobs. Artificial intelligence is reshaping hiring. New analysis from Fosway says talent acquisition teams are now part of wider workforce planning decisions, long before a vacancy is approved. Organisations continue to hire for revenue-generating roles, frontline positions and scarce skills. Entry-level, desk-based and process-heavy roles face much tougher scrutiny. employers now assess where AI can replace these tasks and increase productivity. Traditional hiring is fragmented. Recruiters are asked not to simply fill vacancies, but to help determine whether some of these roles should exist at all. And there is growing pressure to prove the quality of each hire. Employers want evidence that new recruits can adapt, learn and perform in jobs that are changing quickly with AI. The trend is also visible in the US. Overall employment is still growing. More than 120,000 jobs were added to the US economy last month. But hiring activity fell, job postings declined, and advertised salaries edged lower, supporting what's happening here in Europe, a labour market that remains active but much more selective. Entries are now open for the Learning Technologies Awards 2026. This year's awards have 25 categories, with 4 new additions to reflect some of the big themes in workplace learning. The new categories recognise organisations using AI to transform the role of learning and development, L&D support for organisation-wide AI adoption, excellence in accessible and inclusive digital learning, and innovation within established learning technology products. The awards are open to organisations worldwide across the private, public and third sectors. The deadline for submissions is the 24th of July, with the shortlist announced in September and winners revealed at the annual gala event in London this year on the 11th of November. More workers are changing careers entirely as artificial intelligence creates demand for new skills. Almost 40% of people changing jobs are now switching occupational categories, up from 35% in 2019. AI project coordinator, AI engineer, and data center technician are the fastest growing destinations for career changers, attracting workers from research, analytical and engineering backgrounds, and from consulting and marketing. These findings come as many workers are rethinking their career choices. Research from Cypher has found that nearly 4 in 5 employees have work-related regrets, like staying in a job for too long, working too many hours, and worrying about situations they cannot change. The data shows employees are now more willing to completely reassess their careers, develop new skills, and move into new opportunities. That's Learning News this June. This bulletin is supported by CLO 100, a community that connects and develops learning leaders with events, research and networking. And we appreciate its support. For more on all the latest developments across workplace learning and talent, do register for updates on the Learning News website. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Andy Lancaster sits down with Tom McDowell to challenge one of L&D's most persistent assumptions, that how you deliver learning is what makes it effective.
Welcome to the Learning Lens, which digs into the evidence behind effective learning. I'm Andy Lancaster from Reimagine People Development, and this episode we're going to explore the thorny topic of learning modalities. Now, learning modality is the method or medium through which learning is delivered, whether that's text or a video, podcast, a workshop, or a simulation. And I know we'll all have heard competing claims. People learn best in their preferred format. Or video is more engaging. Or you can't beat a podcast, it's really accessible when you're traveling. Or give me a simple checklist anytime. Now, in L&D, it's easy to get caught up in the next shiny delivery method that's dangled in front of us. A new platform, a new feature, a new experience, or even a new AI agent. But what if learning effectiveness has less to do with the delivery method and more to do with the context? Now, the evidence challenges some deeply held assumptions. Research shows that matching learning to a learner's preferred modality has little impact on performance. And while learners may state preferences, they're often just as likely to learn through a non-preferred learning method. And the effectiveness of a modality can depend on who is learning. We may favour a novel format to boost attention, but sadly that effect often fades. And while immersive experiences seem powerful, they can increase cognitive load and reduce learning effectiveness. Meanwhile, factors such as autonomy and the quality of support may make far more difference. So perhaps the real questions we need to ask in L&D is, are we designing for attention or capability, for clicks or transfer, for excitement or performance? And to explore the evidence behind learning modalities, I'm joined by Tom McDowell. Now, Tom is the founder of Evolve L&D and a leading voice in evidence-informed learning. He's a regular conference speaker, advisor to EdTech companies, and a driving force between the IDTX conferences. Tom, welcome to the Learning Lens. It's absolutely brilliant to have you here, and thanks for all the brilliant stuff you do around evidence-informed learning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to come and have a chat.
Now, this modality thing is a fascinating old chestnut, so it's really nice to be able to explore this one. So Tom, there's a lot of debate about whether modality influences learning. And what does the evidence tell us about when modality really matters and when it matters far less than we think?
So really, when we look as far back as kind of, 83, and you've got a lot of Richard Clarke's work on this, and he's really interested in this question of where does the value lie? And the research is actually unusually pretty clear that the value really does lie in the instruction that we create, in the experience and the barriers that we remove or create, and less in how we deliver it. And the analogy that kind of gets shared a lot from his work is the idea of your food being delivered. The food is what you want. The food is what's either good for you or junk food. Now, that could be delivered in an articulated lorry, a transit van, or a Mini Cooper. As long as the food's good, then the instruction's good and the training works. Where modality really matters is kind of at the edges. It's when it makes the accessing the training more or less difficult. Again, another really simple example would be thinking about that food lorry coming along. I live down a tiny country lane, so that articulated lorry physically cannot get the food to me. Doesn't matter how good the food is, I can't get access to it. Thinking about that in an L&D perspective, it's no good making a podcast, regardless of how well structured the learning is, if you work in an environment where it's a loud machine shop and no one can hear the podcast. So the only time modality really shapes the effectiveness of training is when it makes things inaccessible to our end users. The rest of the time, the vast majority of the value is delivered by what we'd call like good instructional design. So that means balancing foundational knowledge and contextual and domain-specific knowledge. It means opportunities for practice, scaffolding that fades over time as people increase their expertise. All of these things can be done regardless of the modality, and they are what deliver the value. So really important to remember that that is well evidenced, even if we don't feel that day to day, because we spend so much time thinking about modality and instruction being inextricably linked. The more we can think of them as separate things, the better our instruction will become, and the less we'll rely on a modality to push it when we could be maybe creating others that are more efficient or effective.
And that's a brilliant analogy, isn't it? I mean, just to think, yeah, it's a bit like saying, that the person who says, oh, we need video, and we all know the countless video libraries. It's like saying, I demand that my shopping is delivered on an articulated lorry. I mean, that just encapsulates the whole challenge we have around here, around context and accessibility. And I think about some of the things I've been involved with. I worked in a secure prison environment in one of the roles, and our modality was often a rolled up flip chart was all we could take in, So I think that's a really important point for those listening in, that context really, really matters. So one thing I think that I've always been concerned about is this kind of creating enjoyable learning experiences on the basis that the best learning is always enjoyable. Maybe we can unpack that in a moment. But so is it about, have we become too fixated on enjoyable learning and not focused enough on whether a modality actually improves performance? And if so, why have we gone that route?
So, I mean, I would say yes, we have. I think this is broader than L&D, though. I think as a society, we've become far too attached to everything should be great all the time, which isn't particularly good for us. But when we specifically look at our practice, it's not difficult, I don't think, to see why we've gone down that road. If people enjoy things, they tend to be more positive about them. How do most L&D teams measure success? Happy Sheets. What did you think of the training? Did you enjoy it? Do you feel like it was useful? Do you plan to implement this in your work? If people enjoy the experience, they are far more likely to be positive in those reviews, and therefore we look good, we feel good. Ultimately, this comes down to a measurement. Weirdly, we create enjoyable experiences, or we prioritize enjoyment because it's easy to measure, because it gives us something we can say, see, we did a good job. And this isn't to say that learning should be like miserable. I'm not saying we should go back to rows of desks in Victorian school and have people just repeat things monotonously, but we need to balance the idea of enjoyment is not inherently valuable. We just don't want to create something that's so dismal that it switches people off. Instead, I tend to think of, can we create training or interventions that are motivational rather than enjoyable? And this really comes from like the product world, where they have the idea of the UUD, or useful, usable, and desirable. So everything should be useful, otherwise why does it exist? It should be usable, i.e. I should be able to get access to it. It should be accessible. I should understand how it functions. Desirable is where people get confused. We think that means enjoyable. In fact, when we're talking about desirable, it's about making people want to do it or wish to engage with it. And that's a motivational question, not an enjoyment question. And I think we get a little bit lost there sometimes. And that's where we perhaps fall into the world of make it a game, or all these fun, really fun, entertaining things that we do, but we kind of let ourselves down on our core mission, which is, the effective and efficient development of performance in the workplace. It's very difficult, I would argue, if we're prioritizing enjoyment, to argue that we're being efficient. And I would argue it doesn't contribute to the effectiveness side either.
And that's an interesting distinction, motivation versus enjoyment. They're very different terms, actually, aren't they? Because, I might be motivated by something actually which is quite challenging. I'm 100%. Sure climbing Everest is not necessarily enjoyable at times, but it's motivational because there's a goal there. So I think that's well made. I wonder whether short-termism comes around this a bit as well. We're kind of in this kind of scrolling, clicking, enjoying kind of stuff. So
absolutely.
Mistakes, I guess, actually probably provide a powerful opportunity, which kind of bucks the trend that enjoyment, this is all about enjoyment, about mistake-based learning.
Absolutely. I mean, even just anecdotally, if you think back through your life, some of our biggest learning moments that really stick with us and that shape how we work today, we based on mistakes. So much of even just my instructional practice today as an L&D professional is based on, well, I got that wrong, don't do that again, figure out why it went wrong, do better next time. That is such a powerful driver for humans when it comes to changing our behavior. And you can pick up a lot of this from the world of like self-determination theory, which is just hugely underrated in our space. And again, plays into the fact of modality is so much less important than these more human underpinnings. The idea of providing autonomy to our people to motivate them, giving them the ability to apply things in real world contexts without being overshadowed, without always being told what to do. That's not inherently about choice, but about the ability to do. And again, I think we often get lost between the gap between those two a little bit. But it is definitely, I would argue, better to motivate people to want to change than to try and make change enjoyable. Yeah. And I think change is ultimately the best example of this we have in the workplace.
Now, in learning development, we're very prone to the latest shiny thing or trend. There's not many bandwagons that we probably haven't jumped on. But in terms of modality, constraints actually play an important part in choice of modality. You touched a little bit earlier on that, but it'd be interesting just to unpack a little bit around not thinking about shininess, but constraints as a key thing for what modalities we might be looking at.
Yeah, so I mean, I think most people are quite surprised when we talk that I would strongly advocate for designing to constraint rather than opportunity. There will always be an opportunity to do the new exciting thing. Whether it's at the minute rolling out an AI agent of some kind, or whether it's building the shiny new podcast because you got very interested in podcasting, you can always find reasons to do these things. But again, I always go back to what is the smallest thing we can do that is effective and efficient to achieve the result we want. And that usually means staying as close as possible to constraints. So rather than writing, what do I want to do? It's what can I not do? So it's a loud environment that we're putting this intervention out into. Okay, we can't do a podcast. These people don't work at a desk. Okay, let's absolutely not do anything that requires desktop computers. These people don't have access to work laptops. Okay, we're running out of screen spaces here, but we're starting to cross off a lot of potential modalities. And I find it much more effective to go down that route than to try and sit there at a blank page and go, how best to deliver this experience that I've come up with? And that way you avoid any risk of inaccessible creation, because you are inherently building for the environment you're releasing this into. We've all probably kind of seen it in a workplace where we go, oh, we've built this wonderful thing. It's not compatible with our LMS. Yeah. Or we've bought this wonderful content library. What are we going to do with it? We don't know, but it's really great. These things happen because we start with the opportunity rather than first considering the constraints. And so really simple way of thinking about this. It's ultimately a list of what we can't do. And then you build what you're left with. 9 times out of 10, I find that's a short list.
A massive thank you from Learning Now TV and the Learning Lens, and lots for us to take away and think about around learning modalities.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a while, I have to say, Martin Cousins. We have done these reports relentlessly month after month, but there's been a bit of a gap since the last one. And we're going to remedy that by picking a juicy report for you to get your teeth in. What have you picked, Martin, this time?
Well, it's good to be back, Nigel. And of course,
I'm glad to welcome you back.
Yeah, the world of research never rests, even if we've had a few episodes of gap between last time and now. So this time we're looking at quite a big research report from Microsoft, and it's called the 2026 Work Trend Index Annual Report, Agents, Human Agency, and the Opportunity for Every Organization. And yes, it is about AI, basically.
It is.
And the survey is big. It's basically looked at 20,000 knowledge workers who use AI, and it's basically kind of taken a dive into that, if you will, just to see how it's being used and the impact of its usage and what that means for organizations.
I think, Martin, that although you'd say, oh, it's Microsoft, oh, they have Copilot, obviously they're going to be very pro, the actual report takes a very balanced and intelligent view. So I think that's why your unerring eye has chosen this report. It is not just a bunch of puff. It is a good, deeply worked through analysis with some great data and some interesting conclusions. And that's why I would say read it if you have any sense at all, because it's a thoughtful contribution to the AI debate and the reason why we're putting it forward for Learning Now TV. So Martin, what is it about? What are the conclusions? What can we draw from this report?
Well, it's a big report and there's a lot to dig into. So I would kind of echo what you've just said. I would definitely take the time to have a look at this report. It is well beyond what Copilot might mean for you and your organization. So I think that one has to have a caveat. Of course, it is a Microsoft bit of research, but I think what's quite interesting is, how AI is being used, and it looks like, an analysis of 100,000 Copilot chats, and that's the type of data they also look at, how the tools are being used, found that 49% supported activities such as problem solving, analysis, and decision making, compared with 19% focused on collaboration and 17% on producing work outputs. So
in other words, that people are not just saying, Copilot, produce this report for me. Copilot, develop these slides. They in that same section they say AI lifts the ceilings on individual potential. In other words, you do more of the big stuff and the good stuff because you've got AI supporting you. That's essentially the message. And I think that is a very, in this current climate with all the discussions, this is a very important point. Sorry to interrupt, Mike.
Yeah, and I think and it does look at things like the kind of human skills, if you like.
Yes, it does.
So,
It absolutely does.
so the top skills that employees believe matter in the AI-driven workplace are kind of quality control of AI outputs and critical thinking.
Yes.
And 86% say they still treat AI outputs as a starting point rather than a final answer. Now, I thought that was quite interesting because, you know, there's a lot of talk about things like AI slop and the fact that, you know, people are just pumping stuff out without taking any notice of what it might look like. But within organizations, it looks like people are using it a bit more, you know, kind of using it in a more thoughtful, intentional
Yes.
way. And that's
Yes.
quite interesting that it's not the starting point.
They talk about the 4 modes of working with AI: delegation, and that's the kind of low-level stuff in a way, collaboration, exploration, and asking. And asking is to get facts and get information back. So if you think of it on those 2 frames, that if you like, as an agent that's a teammate and as something that is humans being supervised by humans, you get close to where they're coming from, I think. Would you agree, Martin?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I wanted to, there was something else in this that I wanted to quickly pick up, actually, which was what they call the transformation paradox. And so beyond the kind of individual kind of approaches that workers have around AI that we're talking about, there's this idea that basically some workers are operating at different speed to the organization, and that is a challenge. So basically, workers are often more AI ready than organizations around them. And only 19% of all respondents to the survey sit in what they call the frontier category, where both employee capability and organizational readiness is high, right? So 31% say they are misaligned because either employees are ahead of organizational systems or vice versa.
Yeah, and it's mostly employers are ahead. I think that's what they're saying. It's not. It's not the other way around.
Yeah.
So one of their statements, which again I just want to flag up, is the job of every leader is to re-architect work. So you've got to recognize the world is changing and re-architect in the light of that, as a result of that.
So
that's pretty profound, I think.
Yeah, but they're saying that because this research is saying that only 26% of AI users say leadership is clearly aligned on AI strategy, right?
Exactly.
So,
yes, you're absolutely right.
And people aren't quite sure about the performance expectations. You know, should they be going full tilt with AI? But if the strategy is out of, is misaligned or actually is still catching up with what employees are doing, what should employees be doing? Because it might not be a good look for them. It might be that they're actually spending time doing stuff with AI, which may not be what the company is targeting them on doing. Or, so I think I suppose this is probably a sort of holding state, if you like, because lots of companies are still trying to work out the actual impact of AI on the organization and work processes.
Yes, and what impact they will allow happen or block. It's not just it happens by magic. It happens because people make decisions. So they talk about this being a systems problem, and systems problems don't fix themselves. You've got to change the system. So that's their emphasis on redesign. And again, I think that's wise words. It's not about what's the matter with you. Just get on and use AI. And there is an element of that in some organizations, or we're all going to be using AI very well. It's more what do we need to change in this organization to optimize the potential that this gives for everyone to be that bit smarter and that bit more productive. That's what it's up. So it's very much a business-focused approach and a systems-focused approach. Both of those things I really liked. So that's, I think you picked a really good report to talk about.
So my final point would be, and it would reflect what you've just said, is that this report's sort of saying that organizational culture matters more than individual enthusiasm and use of AI, right? There's the factors such as manager support, AI culture, and the way that, and what they call talent practices account for 67% of reported AI impact, compared with 32% of individual mindset and behavior. So actually, I think that's like a big takeaway from this bit of research, is that it's organizational. It's not about individuals, it's about how the whole organization, which then taps into the leadership, the strategy, the alignment, so actually it's a whole organization. It's like it's a systems challenge, really.
Yeah.
And that's what this research report is kind of bearing out.
So much is still focused on individuals. Like they say, there's another great quote. It's full of great quotes. The real question isn't whether people have the right skills, it's whether the organization is built to unlock them. I think that's a great quote. Build the organization to be what it needs to be to maximize the opportunities. Don't just sit there flailing some individuals because they're too slow or don't get it, and overcompensating other individuals because they're wonderful and they get it straight away and they're the pioneers. It's the system that has to unlock the potential, not the individuals. Great message, Martin. A great message, I think. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate drawing attention to something that's so relevant, so important, and is challenging. It's a really challenging report, I think.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, as always, Martin. So that's the end of another program. Hope you found it as interesting as we did, pulling it all together. So what were the highlights for you, Kate? What interested you?
I think that the theme across all of the interviews that we had this month is it all felt very timely to me. If I think about the conversations that I'm having with customers and partners and other industry folk in my job, we are in a time of people know things need to shift, but they're not really sure how to do that. So from sort of the very top and kind of rethinking some of the frameworks and some of the systems thinking, which we were discussing at the Shape the Future Consortium event, with Jane, right the way through to sort of more practical elements around, sort of Andy's conversation around learning modalities, the earlier careers conversation. And I guess that then ladders back up into some of the big picture like research that you and Martin were talking about. So, the way that we put the show together doesn't always have that common thread through, just because of the nature of when we can get hold of people. But I really feel like it's very timely. And just before obviously we go off, people start to peel off for the summer, etc. I think there's a lot for people to be reflecting on and thinking about as maybe they start to think about their summer holidays and having a bit of headspace to reflect and think about what they're going to come back and do in the autumn.
I completely agree about the coherence. It was, and the interesting thing that struck me as well was that all of it is aligned to L&D. It's not in the middle of it all. So this is all about the bigger issues around AI implementation and leadership, around human judgment and the building of organizational learning, around mentorship and bringing young people into the business and helping them get a foothold in the world of work. So all of those things are really important, but they're not strictly on the L&D agenda. And I think we're going to see more of that, Kate. I think that's the direction of travel. So I thoroughly enjoyed putting this show together. I think it's put its finger on something important. So
Yeah,
good to
agreed.
talk to you, Kate. Good to talk to you. Any events coming up over the next few months? One
Well,
or two?
as I say, we're skipping off into the summer break a little bit. My Mr. G is delighted because I'll be home for a bit uh, to look after the kids. But fast forward to September, you need to get your diaries out, start thinking about your availability. So our friends at the LPI are hosting Learning Live on the 16th and 17th of September in London. I'm looking forward to that. The Women in Learning Leadership cohort will be there doing a bit of a session.
Oh, good. Good.
Our friends at the talent gathering are gathering together on the 1st of October at Murrayfield in Edinburgh. That's an amazing lineup. Might be a bit emotional. I know they've got Sir Chris Hoy coming in amongst a raft of great speakers there. The following week is World of Learning up in Birmingham on the 6th and 7th. Of October. Then we're hopping over to Ireland for Learnovation 2026 on the 8th of October, which sounds great. And
really
then,
good. I'll be there. It's only one day, but it's a great day in
just
Dublin.
one day. And then a firm favourite for me, obviously, Unleash Paris is on the 20th to the 22nd of October in Paris. Always a good one. So there's a lot happening there. We would love it if anyone, wanted to, if you're going to any of those events, if you want to do us a road report, if you want to come and be interviewed afterwards. As I say, it's always nice to kind of make that time for some reflection and key takeaways after the fact.
And we'll be back on the 30th of July. So if you haven't gone on holiday or you're back from holiday, we'll see you then at the end of July. Have a great summer,
watch
everybody.
us from your holiday. We don't mind.
Or watch us from your holiday, indeed. I will be in winter, not summer. I'll be in Australia on the 30th of July. So pity me, Kate, in the rain and the howling rain and the gales and the cold, while you're sunning yourself on some glorious beach somewhere.
I feel terribly sorry for you, yeah. I'd hate to go to Australia.
It's tough. Someone has to do it. See you next month.
See you then.